Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back on this beautiful Wednesday morning. Of course, we do come late, and incredibly so. That's at 34 minutes past the hour of 10 a.m. Like I did inform you last night, I had an early morning engagement that was to keep me out beyond the start beyond the 9 a.m. Mark when we usually do our broadcast. But nonetheless, I thought we should get on here and talk a few things here and there about football because I mean, why not? I know this will catch many off guard. I know it will catch many in absentia, but yeah, we will do it regardless. So, for those of you, for our usual suspects, it's good to have you on the channel. Do indulge us as we go through today's broadcast. We shall do it. We shall keep it simple. We will be talking about Bukayo Saka set to sign his contract. Um, I'm excited to watch Palace whoever sack and demolish Liverpool today. That's a Pedri saying. Yeah, it's a game we spoke about last night, and I was expressing or stressing the importance or the significance of that game, particularly to Liverpool, but also for what it means to Crystal Palace, a team that won the FA Cup last season. For all accounts and purposes, if they were to go ahead and win the Carabao Cup this season, I think it would go a long way in further building Oliver Glasner's already rich CV, but also helping Crystal Palace win more silverware. So we'll get to speak about that and more. And then, but the question we do pose this morning is: do you think set pieces are ruining Premier League football? Because it's the kind of conversation people are trying to float around as though suddenly football is going to the ruins just because teams are trying to give more attention and more focus on set piece play, on how they go about set piece play, on how they either defend, on how they can exploit those moments to score goals and win games and things like that. So it's a debate I want us to expound on in today's discussion, but also we will have our eyes into the Carabao Cup. Yesterday we had action, including Brentford beating up against Grimsby Town by 5 goals to 0. Fulham advanced through penalties, winning that penalty shootout 5-4. Then there was another game. I think Wrexham were knocked out by Cardiff City, beating them by 2 goals to 1. So we'll be going over that briefly in today's episode that I hope won't be too long, given that we've come on a bit late. But nonetheless, so we will do it anyway. And let's start. When we start it all from? Okay, I think let's start off with what happened yesterday in as far as the Carabao Cup is concerned. Like I've told you, Fulham managed to advance to the next round at the expense of Wycombe Wanderers. That game ended in a 1-1 draw in normal time before Fulham advanced 5-4 on penalties that preceded the normal time. And then Brentford continued with their immaculate form across all competitions with an emphatic victory against Grimsby Town. We're talking about a Grimsby Town that knocked out Manchester United at the second round and also knocked out Sheffield Wednesday, I think, at the third round. So unfortunately for them, their run couldn't go beyond the fourth round with Jensen, Lewis Potter, Rhys Nelson, Fabio Carvalho, and I think Nathan Collins, the goal scorers there for Brentford as they completed that 5-0 rout against Grimsby Town. So Keenan, Lewis Potter on target there. So beautiful game of football there. I did not catch that game. My eyes were in the Italian Serie A, where AC Milan shared the spoils in a 1-0 draw with Atlanta, while Napoli beat up against Lecce by a 1-0 with Zambo Anguissa, the goal scorer in that game. Zambo Anguissa, one of the most on-form players in as far as Italian football is concerned. at the moment. So something for us to digest there. Then also in today, the action in the Carabao Cup does continue with more fixtures to come away. With Arsenal at 10:45 p.m. They will be at home against Brighton and Hove Albion. Then Manchester City will be away to Swansea City, while Liverpool will be at Anfield to face off with Crystal Palace, and then Chelsea will be away to Wolverhampton Wanderers. All those games kick off at a quarter to 11 p.m. While at 11 p.m., Tottenham Hotspurs will make the trip to St James's Park and to face off with the reigning champions of the EFL Cup. Now, to digest this a bit further, I think let's start off with the Liverpool game, because that's where Pedri ushers into immediately in as far as this broadcast is concerned. So he says, "I'm so excited to watch Palace devour, sack, and demolish Liverpool today." And yesterday, for those of you that were part of the broadcast, and but for purposes of repeating ourselves, I'll stress this further. I think this it's going to matter less about what competition it is, because of the kind of form that Liverpool find themselves in. On any given day, if we were at the same stage last season and Liverpool met Crystal Palace, I think they would have been less concerned or would be less worried about losing to Crystal Palace, because they were doing so well in the Premier League. They were doing so well in the UEFA Champions League at this stage. Now, in sharp contrast, this season, of course, having lost 4 games on the spin in the Premier League, and then 5 games out of the last 6, the other loss coming against Galatasaray in the UEFA Champions League, the only win coming against Eintracht Frankfurt in the same competition. Liverpool are under more pressure. Anna Slot is under more pressure. Yes, over the weekend, they have a very, very significant game against Aston Villa at Anfield. The advantage for them is that both of these subsequent games are going to be at home. Now, whereas that in itself is an advantage, to have the home advantage, to which Liverpool have not really had, for which Liverpool hasn't mattered as much in the recent couple of games. But I said this and I'll repeat it. Anna Slot does not have the luxury to say, I'm going to rest some of my key players. It does not have that luxury. That luxury will only come if they are on a winning streak, if the whole team was full of aura, full of confidence, beaming with, the big boys' superiority and mentality, that they are in a winning phase. Unfortunately, it is not that phase. So you cannot afford to welcome Crystal Palace, and suddenly we are seeing youngsters, starting this game. The Riongo Mohas. I'm not saying, him particularly, but he cannot just go to the academy and say, yeah, give me 5 of those academy players. I will blend them with our bench players, the likes of Federico Chiesa, and maybe Fabio Carvalho. Curtis Jones, who's been starting recent games, although he went off the weekend in what appeared to be an injury, to have Wataru Endo, then maybe go to the goalkeeper that they signed from Preston North End as a free agent, and I look to Joe Gomez among other players to sort of assemble a team that goes and plays out against Crystal Palace. He cannot afford. There is no reason for resting the likes of Mamadashvili, Virgil van Dijk, Ibrahim Konate, or Gomez, Andy Robertson, Conor Bradley. They all should be starting. If Wataru Endo is available and is without injury, he should be starting this fixture for me, because Liverpool need to win this game. They need to win this game. Not because their life depends on it, not because Anna Slot's career depends on it, or his job with Liverpool depends on it, but particularly because if they were to win this game, it would give them some bit of confidence going into the weekend against Aston Villa. We had hoped that their victory against Eintracht Frankfurt would have given them that sort of inspiration, but we also knew that it was a different opponent, it was a different context. The game was away to Germany. Not that Germany is an easy place to go to, but they played against a team that played more open football, more expansive, looked to counter attack them in different occasions, and in fact, their only consolation came from a counter attack and things like that. So they played a bit of a more open game, and they were able to win 5-1. Two of their goals coming from set piece plays through Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahim Konate. But back here, you are facing a Premier League side, Crystal Palace. Excuse me. A team that has already beaten you in the Premier League this season by 2-1. A team that beat you in the Community Shield by 3-2. That proceeded a 2-0 draw in normal time. So when you look at that context, winning against Crystal Palace, a Premier League side, a side that can be very conservative, should be the sort of a perfect measure to give you the confidence going into the weekend in the game against Aston Villa. But can Liverpool actually do it? For me, I said I will reserve my prediction for what the outcome of this game will be until I see the starting lineups, because we do not know what the manager's school of thought is, both on Oliver Glasner's side as well as on Anna Slotty's side. But of the two managers, we will know without an ounce of doubt that it is Anna Slot that is going to be under more pressure, and that winning this game is very, very significant. He needs to bounce back. The team needs to bounce back to winning ways and stop losing games literally for fun. And given that they're facing a team that they haven't beaten in the last three fixtures, because last season, in the last game of the season, was against Crystal Palace in a 1-1 draw. But prior to that, in the reverse fixture earlier on in the season, they had beaten up against Crystal Palace by 1-0 at Selhurst Park. Can they afford a narrow victory against Crystal Palace? Any win will be very welcome amongst Liverpool fans, to Anna Slot, to those players. Dominic Szoboszlai, McAllister, Wataru Endo should be in that midfield. Going forward, Federico Chiesa, Mo Salah, Hugo Ekitike, all should be starting that game. Of course, I do not expect that if Hugo Ekitike scores, he will be celebrating stupidly like he did against Southampton and taking off his shirt to get himself sent off. But whatever they need to do it as soon as possible to win some games of football. They need wins. Whatever form or shape it may come, they do not have the luxury. Crystal Palace, the other side, will come. Of course, they themselves have not been in great form because they have lost, I think, 3 of their last 4 games across all competitions. They lost in the UEFA Conference League, lost in the Premier League twice against Arsenal and against Everton. In between, they are having a 3-0 draw against FC Bournemouth. So they themselves need to return to winning ways and find inspiration. And what better way to do it than against the Premier League reigning champions, a team that hasn't beaten you or you haven't lost to in the last 3 fixtures. So for Oliver Glasner, like I said, for smaller teams, for mid-table teams, the EFL Cup, the FA Cup is always the biggest opportunity for them to win a piece of silverware. That's why they were very good last season in the FA Cup. Remember, in the run to the final, they beat up against a team like Aston Villa by 3 goals. Was it 3-0 or 3-1? Ismail Sarr scoring a burst in that semi-final. So they know without an ounce of doubt that while they have the FA Cup to defend, it wouldn't hurt to go far in this competition and possibly try to win. It would mean a lot to Oliver Glasner's CV, but it would mean more to Crystal Palace as a team to win another major piece of silverware back to back. So the significance of this particular game to both sides cannot be stressed any further beyond that they both need to win. But at the end of the day, we will only have one winner, because remember, in as far as these games are concerned, we have no extra time. There's no reverse fixture as the case was. If it's all square in normal time, we go straight down to penalties and decide who advances to the 50th round / the quarterfinals. So, like I told you, Fulham, sorry, will it be the quarterfinals? I stand to be corrected. But you will know that Fulham are already through, Coventry are already through, and then Brentford are already through. So that's 3 teams. Today, in today's fixtures, we need to determine the other 5 teams that advance in today's games. Apologies, I'm trying to find that fixture Yes, in today's 5 games, we need to determine the other 5 that join the 3 to go to set up the quarterfinals that will be played in the subsequent month, possibly, or that will be after the November international break and thereabout. So when Pedro says he wants Liverpool to be devoured, in other words, he wants to send Anna Slot closer to his unemployment, because if they do lose this game, like I said, it isn't a make or break. It won't threaten his job, but it will go a significant way in adding more pressure to him, because then you can be getting beaten left, right, and center across all competitions. He just needs to avoid defeat at all costs. For me, that's what I think. But like I said, I'll reserve my predictions until when I see the starting 11s be put out. Then the other game that I wanted to ask to shed light on is the game for Arsenal versus Brighton. Of course, all today's games are significant because you have 4 teams from the top 6. Actually, you have 5 teams from the top 6. You would say, 4 teams from the top 6. Forget where teams finished last season, Tottenham being the culprit in this particular case. But you have Arsenal in action, you have Liverpool, you have Man City, you have Chelsea, you have Newcastle who finished 5th. So, in other words, you have the top 5. Last season is top 5, still in the competition. But significantly, I put it to Arsenal to say that they must win against Brighton, a bit of a bogey side who have beaten them 3 times in recent times at the Emirates Stadium. For those of you that remember, twice in the Premier League, I think, and once, I think, at the 4th round of the EFL Cup. They did beat. That was, you remember that team that had, I think, Neil Mope, that kind of team. But yes, in November 2023, Brighton went to the Emirates Stadium and beat up against us by 3-1. But in 2019, December 2019, you'll find a 2-1 victory for Brighton against Arsenal at the Emirates Stadium. You go to May 2023, you'll find a 3-0 victory for Brighton against Arsenal. Remember when they were crumbling away to lose that Premier League title that they had pushed for so long in the 2022-2023 campaign. Well, they lost to Brighton in that same season. You remember Pavis Estupinan, I think Joao Pedro, I think Pascal Grob was still at the club, Ivan Ferguson was well in that team. Joao Pedro, I think, was in practice David Campanos, Drabat. So anyways, the reason as to why I feel that Arsenal must win this fixture has little to do with their recent performances or their 3 defeats against Brighton at the Emirates Stadium. It has everything to do with keeping up the momentum, the winning momentum that they do have, the mentality that they do have, the idea that they shouldn't be losing any game, because losing a game means a dent in their momentum. It means a moment of self-doubt in their own abilities. But more significantly, I stressed this yesterday and I'll repeat it again, that the EFL Cup is the earliest opportunity for all teams to win a piece of silverware in as early as possible into the season, because that final gets to be played in February. When it gets to be played in February, we're still maybe about 3 months to the end of the season. And what we know the significance of the last 3 months to winning the Premier League, but also, so when you win the Carabao Cup, it gives you that confidence. It gives you that confidence that you can go and win other pieces of silverware. We know that Man City have literally, Pep Guardiola took this competition really, really seriously, and he still does take it very, very seriously. He used to win this competition literally for fun, season in, season out. They were winning it for quite some time. When you look at the list of previous winners, you will find that, of course, Newcastle, the reigning champions, Liverpool won it in 2024. When you go back to 2023, it was Manchester United. When you go back to 2022, it was Liverpool. But between 2018 and 2021, Manchester City won the competition on 4 different occasions, 4 consecutive times. Twice in those seasons, they beat up against Arsenal in the final. That was in 2018 and in 2019. They were beating up against Manchester City. Sorry, they were beating up against Arsenal in the final. Then for Arsenal, it's been what, 32 years ever since they last won this competition. Yes, they did play a final in 2007 and lost to Chelsea by 2-1. For those of you that don't remember, Theo Walcott squad in that game. Then you had Arsenal lose again in 2011 in the final. They lost to Birmingham City by 2-1. You remember the calamity of Laurent Koscielny and Wojciech Szczesny, for those of you that care to remember. So it's a competition that they've not won, in a very, very long time. And I think Mikel Arteta did stress that quite significantly well. I'm trying to see, the last time they won it was in 1993 when they beat up against Sheffield Wednesday by 2-1. That's the last time they won it. And then you also have to go back to 1987 when they also won it again, when they beat up against Liverpool 2-1 in the final. But they played so many finals, including in 1988, they lost to Luton Town by 3-2. Which other final? Yes, the other 2 finals come, or 3 finals come in the latter years after, in 2011 and onwards. So, particularly, the argument I'm trying to make is that the reason as to why Arsenal need to win this game is I want them to go and win this competition because it will give them more motivation. It will give them a lot of belief going forward that they can actually win pieces of silverware. Like I've said, it's the earliest opportunity for a team to win a piece of silverware. It's not going to be an easy game. It's going to be a difficult game. Nonetheless, with Arsenal's kind of squad this season, I expect them to field a very, very strong team. I said yesterday, I would expect Kepa Arrizabalaga in goal, Christian Mosquera, Pierre Hincap, Maz Lewis Kelly, Ben White in that back 4. In midfield, I would go with Christian Norgard. In my opinion, I'd go with Mikel Merino. I'd go with Ebelechi Eze. I'd go with Ethan Wanyeri. I'd go with Gabriel Martinelli and Leandro Trossard in that format. Now, is it the strongest of Arsenal teams to present? No, certainly not. Pairing Pierre Hincap and Mosquera in centre back for the first time this season sounds a bit of a risky business. We've not seen Christian Norgard start for Arsenal this season. There's no chemistry between Merino and Eze. But we're talking about a Premier League proven player in Christian Norgard, who was captain of his former team at Brentford. We're talking about Ben White, who is well accustomed to Premier League football and facing off a team like Brighton, his former team. And Lewis Kelly, no need for introduction. Christian Mosquera, he started with the Premier League life or Arsenal life has been brilliant, so there's not many worries about them. What my worries would be about that kind of lineup is about the chemistry of those players as they have never played before. You have so many partnerships right from the back line to the midfield to the forward. Players that have not played really so many games between them to have that bit of chemistry and nuance or sort of acclimatization to each other. That's, this is how this one behaves and this is how I help them in that sort of sense. On the side of Brighton, I expect a very, very strong team. Like I said, for mid-table teams and lower teams, their only golden ticket to winning a piece of silverware is the FA Cup, is the Carabao Cup. That's why last season we had Newcastle win the Carabao Cup, beating Liverpool by 2-1 in the final. We had Crystal Palace winning the FA Cup. So if a team like Brighton, you look at what Crystal Palace were able to do last season, you look at what Newcastle were able to do last season and say, that's my inspiration. Let me have the run for it. Let me go for it. So, and yet on the other side, for Arsenal, what it would mean moving ahead is to keep that winning momentum. You just do not want to break that cycle. I would love to see Arsenal going to win the Carabao Cup It's a kind of competition where during the many years of Arsene Wenger they used to say he despised the competition, so he oftentimes fielded a very junior team. And I do particularly do not blame him, because the Carabao Cup also is the kind of competition that gives you the opportunity to test your young players that are coming through the academy, that are showing great potential, to come and showcase your talent at a much bigger stage than the under levels where you're playing at. So it's a huge opportunity for managers to test out young players. And I think particularly Kalachita was speaking about the idea of playing Max Dorman, and it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer because of the kind of talent that he has. And if you cannot see how he trains, then you just blind. And he said he would be very blind if he wasn't seeing it. Now, I'm not suggesting that he starts, and I do not expect that he will start, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did start anyways. But also knowing Mikel Arteta being Mikel Arteta, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Bukayo Saka on the pitch. He did not have a very good game against Crystal Palace. He struggled. He did say he had a bit of an illness, but let's hope he's recovered. So Arsenal have injuries to contend with, but those injuries, including scares for Declan Rice of the weekend, William Saliba being withdrawn at halftime, Ricardo Carafiori, even when they have all those injuries, for me, it's not going to be an excuse. They still have a very strong team. Declan Rice, even though he could be absent, I'm of the view that you give Martin Zubimendi a bit of a rest, and let these guys play for about 60 minutes and see how the game goes. Depending on how it goes, then you can make some significant changes. But guys, give him a rest. Let Leandro Trossard start as your center forward. Let him alternate with Gabriel Martinelli, or let him start to the left wing and Gabriel Martinelli plays as your center forward. Whichever way he looks to set up his team. I think it's a workable team. It's a home game. You have fans behind you. I do not think the stadium will be filled to capacity, but we are also talking about an Arsenal side that is capable of playing an open-ended game, that is also capable of playing a conservative game. Brighton will come very strong. Danny will be coming to face his former bosses. Lewis Dunk will be there to lead his team. Yankuba Minte, Yasin Ayari, Kostolas, the Greek guy, all those players that Arsenal will know that are capable of hurting them on if given the opportunity. Kaul Mitoma. If anything, Arsenal need to review what Man United did against Brighton and try and deploy the same strategy. Different set of players, but the strategy should be the same. They tried to play out of the back. Sometimes they made poor decisions while doing that, and that's how they conceded their first 2 goals and things like that. So they can be a beatable team. For purposes of predictions, I will reserve all my predictions for the EFL Cup until I see those starting levels, because you can never know what managers can do. Mikel Arteta can choose to go all out, all strength, with the best team that there is at his disposal for selection. I wouldn't blame him. I wouldn't be surprised. It would be typical Mikel Arteta, because he wants to win. And he wants to win something as soon as yesterday. And if the chance puts it that he gets to win the EFL Cup first, then he will try to go for it. But yeah, let's wait and see what that will come off. Also, quickly, Chelsea, I said the same thing. Chelsea, over the weekend, they will be in the London derby against Tottenham Hotspur, after which they will have to play a game against Wolverhampton Wanderers. And if you're Chelsea, you want to get back to winning ways. You want to escape the agony of the weekend scare in that 2-1 loss to Sunderland. And Wolves presents you that opportunity. Wolves are very poor side. They do not defend well. They do not attack well. I do not know anything that they do well. So they are there for the taking, literally. With all the injuries that Chelsea have, I still can assemble a very capable side of beating up against this Wolverhampton and their side, including their former player in Pedro Neto, who needs to add numbers to this game. Numbers in the form of assists and goals. William Estaval, Jamie Gittens, Garnacho, again, Enzo Maresca, he too does not have the luxury of resting players. Go ahead and win a game of football. let that be your inspiration going into the weekend, into that London derby against Tottenham Hotspur, whom you managed to beat up against home and away last season. Then the other game is Manchester City, Swansea. I mean, for me, the two sides are incomparable in terms of talent, in terms of squad, in terms of what's available to them. I simply expect Manchester City to win. Yes, we're talking about Swansea, who knocked out Nottingham Forest 3-2, coming from 2 goals down to win it. But in whichever shape or form Swansea come into this fixture, I still expect Manchester City to win, to bounce back from their weekend defeat away to Aston Villa. And then, like I've told you guys, Pep Guardiola takes this competition seriously. He wants to win it. He's won it on 4 different occasions as Manchester City manager. And that should tell you its significance to them. Then when you go back in 2014, what was his name? The Man City manager. Was it not Manuel Pellegrini? He won it for them in 2014 and in 2016. Remember, 2016 was his last season with Man City before Pep Guardiola walks in. So, and then Man United won it in 2017. They beat Southampton 3-2 in the finals. So then Newcastle, Tottenham, again, chance of silverware. Newcastle, the reigning champions. Tottenham, Thomas Frank, wouldn't he relish the beauty of winning a trophy in his first season? Whether it's the Carabao Cup, whether it's the FA, whichever the opportunity you will grant him, he will be open to winning a title. Going to be a very, very difficult game. Both teams can play a conservative game. Let's see what they make of themselves, even though their recent fixtures, in as far as the Premier League is concerned, suggest that they are capable of scoring many, many goals. But do not forget that their pre-season friendly ended in a 1-1 draw. Anyways, guys, allow me call it a wrap on... Oh, sorry. It can't be a wrap. Allow me call it a wrap on the EFL Cup and then move to set pieces. Are set pieces ruining Premier League football? The easy answer is no, not at all. Because the people that want to lead you to believe that that's the case are the same people that have on different occasions praised other teams for being good at it. There's a journalist called Ran O'Hanlon, who writes for ESPN. When you go back in July 2019, and this is dated July 24, 2019, he wrote an article that the secret to Liverpool's success in the 2018-2019, why being good at set pieces can win you trophies. He makes reference to Liverpool's victory against Barcelona, beating Barcelona by 4 goals to 0 in the last fixture of their I think it was the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League, or semi-finals or quarter-finals at Anfield, having lost the first leg by 3 goals to 0. So you remember the set piece play where Trent Alexander-Arnold takes a quick play of the ball and Divock Origi scores. Suddenly, he wants the world to now believe that set pieces are too bad. That set pieces are too bad for football and that they are going to ruin English football. Then the same journalist on October 21st, 2025 says how set pieces are ruining Premier League football, helping us. I mean, you cannot have it both ways. You cannot say they are good or one manager is using them really, really well and it's helping them win, and then critique another side for doing the same principle. There's also another journalist who writes for the Liverpool Echo. He's called Ian Doyle. Ian Doyle, at one point, he did praise because, okay, in a recent tweet, and this was what, on Sunday, he put out a tweet saying, interesting, reading that Mikel Arteta appears to claim to have invented the importance of set pieces. English team managers from the 1980s would like a word. Now, he wrote in the Liverpool Echo, and I quote, I do not know specifically when he wrote this, but this reads, the Liverpool Echo's Ian Doyle praised Jurgen Klopp, for bringing more focus to set pieces and maximizing the Reds' threat from them before assessing this as a victory for the Germany's ingenuity. In recent years, he wrote, in recent years, he said, and I quote, in recent years, Jurgen Klopp and his coaching staff have drummed home to their players the importance of dead ball situations, the organizational and tactical aspect of setting up such plays, utilizing one of the many strengths for Liverpool. I stand to be corrected, but I think Liverpool were the first Premier League team to hire a throw-in coach. Why? They wanted to focus on set pieces. They wanted to rely on those dead ball kinds of situations. They wanted to use that as an avenue of winning difficult games, of getting an advantage, of being the better side in all aspects. Then suddenly, now that Arsenal have become good at it, they want to criminalize it. I remember the time when, regardless of how many corner kicks Arsenal got, they could literally not score. Regardless of how many free kicks, they could literally not score. Throw-ins were as casual as you would have. But suddenly, they want to believe you that set pieces are now ruining English football. Brentford are winning the games with set pieces. And for me, that's not a bad thing. If a team decides that we will win 38 games out of 38 through set pieces, they will be champions. And so be it. That will be their strategy. It's about winning. So I do not think it is true that set pieces are ruining English football. It's just a phase where you have set pieces being focused on, being given the amount of time they deserve. How come we never said that counterattacks were ruining football, regardless of whatever results they yielded? How come we never said tic-tac football was ruining football? Because, to be honest, sometimes it was boring watching the team pass a ball around to literally Manchester City, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Pep Guardiola teams. We saw Arsenal do it at some point, literally pass you into boredom until they score a goal. So how come then that did not ruin football? What makes you think set pieces are going to ruin football? I do not want to buy that school of thought. Anyways, chapter closed. Then lastly, before we close out, Saka is set to sign a new contract at Arsenal. Yeah, reports coming through is that the Gunners are advancing well or progressing well with talks with Bukayo Saka and his camp over a new contract. Salary details, this is according to Fabrizio Romano, says salary details being discussed, but all parties involved aligned and convinced to move forward together. Talks were already underway before the summer window and are proceeding well. So we will wait to hear more on that. But yeah, I've told you before that Bukayo Saka is in contract talks with Arsenal. I think next on that list will be the likes of Kai Havertz. I should be in the conversation. The likes of Gabriel Martinelli will be in that conversation for contract talks with Andrea Bata are leading those efforts in as far as this season things are concerned when it comes to contract situations. Otherwise, allow me call it a wrap. Thank you so much, Pedri. Thank you so much, everybody that has been part of today's broadcast. Apologies once again, but like I informed you beforehand, we were bound to come on late today, given other assignments that I had in the early hours of the morning, and which I did pretty much conclude in good time or reasonable time. So yeah, thank you so much. Keep watching. Let's help me build up to those 4,000 hours of watch time, and we monetize this channel. That's the objective. That we will introduce memberships so that you guys can have the opportunity to support the channel in more ways than just watching. Otherwise, thank you so much. Stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye for now.